Hello, my name is Pablo. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another video. I realized the other day, well, I've realized for quite a long time that I'm a bit of an old man. And what do I mean by that? By that, I mean I'm always behind on like trends and things that are quite popular because I found a movie that I'm going to be watching today. Well, I've actually watched called Megan is Missing. And apparently 3 whole years ago, this was a big thing on TikTok. It was like a massive movie on TikTok that people said was like the most terrifying movie they've ever watched in their entire life. And I was like, hey, it's at the end of 2023, almost 2024, and I'm gonna watch this movie because, well, you know, I'm behind on everything, so why not continue the trend? Basically, I saw it on TikTok and it was a really old video, but basically people were saying it's the most terrifying movie they've ever seen in their entire life. It's super scary. And then I looked it up on Letterboxd, and then I looked it up on YouTube, and there's a lot of videos about this movie because apparently it is super terrifying. And I was like, okay, I need to watch this, but not only watch it, I need to make a video about it because I'm really curious. I want to know what the hype is about. Why is Megan missing and why is Megan so fucking popular everywhere? And you know me, I love finding new horror movies, finding like an independent, a really low budget horror movie, just like a really like amateur horror movie, something along those lines is something I really love. Like Skinamarink, I watched that this year and I had a really good time with it. So I was thinking maybe it's going to be the same type of thing with Megan is Missing, and I don't want to spoil the video, but it wasn't. I did not enjoy Megan is Missing. I found it extremely boring. And spoilers, once again, this is the lowest movie that I have rated out of my entire Letterboxd account because I will tell you in a few minutes. I have a lot of things to say about this movie, and but before we do that, let's talk about what I felt before I watched this. I kind of thought it would be like a murder mystery, maybe, because I knew nothing about this movie. I just knew that it was about a girl called Megan, and I guessed she was missing. And I was right, Megan does go missing in this movie. But I kind of expected this to be exciting because there's so much hype around this movie. Surely if there's so much hype around the movie, it's going to be like at least engaging, at least exciting, right? No. So the synopsis for Megan is Missing reads: a teenager mysteriously disappears without a trace after meeting someone she had been talking to online. Ooh, don't trust strangers online because they are bad people and they will kidnap you. So this story basically starts off with, you know, like the usual title card that you would have seen in Paranormal Activity that's like, this is based on a true story. And it makes it feel like it's very real. It makes it feel like it's very realistic because then there's another title card basically being like, hey, this footage was all recovered from like webcams and cameras, and this is the story about how Megan went missing, and then her best friend Amy goes missing, and that's basically the entire story. We follow Megan through a webcam calls, like Skype calls, and her best friend Amy, who has received a webcam, not a webcam, like a camera for her 14th birthday. So on the surface, that is kind of terrifying because both of these girls get kidnapped by a weird guy online and they're 14 years old. As a premise, I agree. That is fucking terrifying. It's disgusting. It's everything awful. We know that, obviously. So it's set in 2007. It gives me like Paranormal Activity, found footage vibes. And if you know me, found footage movies, I really love. I love things like Searching, Missing. You know, those movies that came out like in the last few years. I really like that style, because they're really engaging, they're really creative, they use so many different forms, and it's just unique. And this coming out in 2011, I thought this would be like great. Like, it's not that long ago. It's what, like 12, 13-ish years ago. I kind of had my hopes fairly high. And this being set in 2007, I really liked it because it's kind of like the early 2000s. You know, people are just getting more familiar with the internet and not really understanding the dangers of a lot of freaks online, I guess. And the story goes, well, there's no real story. Megan and Amy are friends. They go to a party. At a party, it's just a weird montage. It's a weird, very long, weird shots of people just like, you know, doing drugs, drinking, listening to metal music, which doesn't really fit the vibe of the scene. And then there's just like this weird guy that's like harassing everybody. And you're like, okay, so maybe he's gonna like, you know, kidnap these girls or something along those lines. But no, this party scene is literally just them partying. And yep, that's over. Yep, Amy and Megan are living their lives. That's the entire kind of like appeal of this movie. It's meant to feel very realistic. It's meant to feel like they're just friends living a 13 or 14-year-old's life. You know, they just live their life. They go to school, they go to parties, they talk about like drugs, guys, blah blah blah, all that sort of stuff. That's kind of like the appeal of this. For me, I got the kind of like impression that somebody was creating this movie and was like, hey, what do teenagers like? And it's like a 40-year-old man writing this. They're like, what do teenagers like? Drugs and like music and sex. That's what kids like, right? That's kind of the impression I got from this movie, because the relationships, specifically between Amy and Megan, are just awful. The way they talk, it just feels really robotic. It's like Megan is like, because they do this on like Skype or something along those lines, like, you know, video call. So Megan is like, hey, I'm gonna hook up with this guy, and Amy's like, oh, I've never hooked up with a guy. How is it? What do you do? Megan is like, well, I do this. Amy is like, no way, can you please tell me more? And their relationship, that's my biggest problem with this movie. Well, one of the problems with this movie, the way people talk, the acting, just the chemistry between the characters is so unbelievable. These motherfuckers are not best friends. Stop trying to sell that to me, because they are not best friends. Stop lying. It is awful. Their relationship, the chemistry in this movie, it's just awful. It just does not work. There's no relationship in the friendships, the acting, everything is so poor. And that's what really pisses me off, because this movie has so much potential and it does nothing with it. Like with the concept, it does nothing with it. And that's another thing with this fucking movie, is like the scenes in this movie are so long, but nothing happens. We just get somebody like having a conversation that has nothing to do with the story. They go to a party and they're just dancing around and nothing happens. And it's just this progressing. And you're like, okay, when is this going to be like disturbing? Because this movie's meant to be terrifying, right? This movie's meant to be really scary. And we eventually get introduced to our guy, Josh, who goes by this pseudonym online, or like his online name is Skater Dude or Skater Boy or Skater Guy, which is hilarious. But Josh's camera does not work. And Josh is like, hey, Megan, you're really hot. Haha, let's meet up. Let's go to a party. And Megan's like, yeah, sure. Okay, let's go to a party. So Megan goes to a party. Josh never shows up, apparently. And then Megan rings him again and is like, hey, you ditched me. You didn't show up. And he's like, no, I didn't. I saw you. You were wearing blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, okay. I guess you're shy. Oh, it's fine. You're shy. It's fine. I'll forgive you. You're not giving off very creepy vibes, because I don't know what I don't know what you look like. You always tell lies and you just ditched me, but it's fine. I'm going to trust you. I'm 13, which is kind of fair enough. You know, you're fairly gullible, and we'll meet up behind a diner, because that screams safety, right? So Megan goes to meet Josh behind a diner, and guess what? Megan disappears. That's it. Do you see her kind of getting kidnapped? No, not really. Then the story continues on from Amy's perspective, who is basically missing her friend Megan. But we also at the same time get a news report who is basically like, it's an entire news story basically being like, Megan is missing. We have a website for Megan is missing. This is awful. And this is the funniest part within this movie. They have the worst, and I mean the fucking worst, news editing, like the presentation, like everything on the screen looks awful. And this movie literally looks like something you would make when you're like 15 years old, or something that you would make for a school project. Then the news station like, hey, we're going to recreate the kidnapping, because the police have secured CCTV footage, which they show you like 10 times, and it's just zoomed in, and it's basically Megan standing there, and a guy comes up, takes her hand and walks her away. What are you going to fucking learn from that? But anyway, which is also, wait, let me mention, it's kind of funny that the news people are kind of like, yeah, maybe she just kind of disappeared and ran away. She wasn't kidnapped. I don't think she was kidnapped. This guy, creepy vibes. No way. I don't think she was kidnapped. Maybe she just ran away. So anyway, the news people recreate her kidnapping, and it is the most insane shit ever. There's like massive like jump cuts, and the noises, like the editing. Oh my God. I'm going to try to find a clip and put it in here, because it is fucking horrific. It is hilarious.
I think this is so important, and I want to do anything I could do to help out. I mean, I can't even imagine that this happened.
It is difficult playing someone as awful as this, but look past your personal feelings, just try and make it real for the audience.
When I was a lot younger, I spent a lot of time on the internet. It's not a safe space. As much as you feel safe in your own home, you're not safe.
And now a Megan is Missing exclusive reenactment.
Hey Mom, it's me. I'm gonna go to the store and get some groceries for breakfast. So I'll see you soon. Bye.
You're trespassing. Come with me.
It looks so fucking bad. Like, how are you meant to take a movie seriously about like a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old, whatever, getting fucking kidnapped, harassed by a freaky fucking old man online? Like, how are you meant to take this seriously if it looks so stupid? It looks so fake. Like, the entire point of this movie is basically being like, do not trust strangers online. Strangers online are very bad. But this movie is hilarious because of how fucking stupid and shit. It looks so bad. It looks so unbelievable. It's insane. It's crazy. One thing I will say about this movie, though, it's like a compliment, is that this story is actually coherent. We know that Megan uses the internet. We know Megan likes to party. She meets this guy online. This guy kidnaps her, and Amy is also trying to figure out what happens, but Amy also gets kidnapped. So there is actually a bit of a story to this, which is something I will give this movie. There's a coherent story. And another thing, which I actually really wanted from this movie, is that I wanted to learn more about Megan, because there's one scene where Amy has her camera, and she's like, oh, Amy, tell me about you. And Megan tells Amy a lot of like personal secrets, and they're very interesting because you're like, oh, I did not realize this happened to you when you were a kid. You find out that Megan had a very, very, very difficult childhood, and you want to learn more about that, but Megan kind of just tells it to the camera, and then she just never mentions it again, which is really annoying because it kind of just feels like it was thrown in. And that is a common theme throughout this movie. Scenes are just very long and just unnecessary just to fill up space. This movie is 85 minutes long, and like I would honestly say an hour of that, there's just no fucking need for it. There's no need for it. It is so pointless. It's so boring. It's so monotonous because like there is the bones of a really interesting story. Like I feel like making a movie about like young girls being lured by a fucking predator is very interesting. It could really inform viewers, especially people on like TikTok who are like really young, or just younger people. It's very interesting. Such a good premise, right? But when it looks this bad, when this is boring, it's like, how are you meant to take this movie seriously? If this movie came out in 2007 or 2005, maybe this would have worked. And there's so many like technical things in this movie that just do not work. Like sometimes they like, how do they have, if it's 2007, how do they bring their laptops outside to FaceTime? Or I don't know. But also, since they use this found footage form, I feel like there's so many opportunities to be really unique with it. But no, this movie actually limits the amount of information that you get to know about these characters, about what's actually going on, because they just don't show you different perspectives. They literally use a camera, a laptop screen, like, you know, for Skype. We see some CCTV footage. That's it. The last 20 minutes of this movie are like, oh, we think this is going to get actually very disgusting. And it does. There's one scene where there's some SA and it is disgusting. I will give this movie that. There's like 1 minute scene and it's just disgusting. It's vile. Ugh. And you're like, okay, wow, this movie actually might get very disgusting. But no, then the movie ends with Josh just digging a hole for genuinely like 10 minutes. And you're like, okay, we get it. He's like a really bad guy. Like, we understand. The viewers are not stupid. But there's also another time where the director or whoever thinks like the viewer is stupid, because Amy is videoing herself and she's talking about missing Amy. And she's like, oh, I come down to this place because I hide my teddies here. And it's just kind of like really comforting. And behind her, you can see a guy standing there. And you're like, oh, that's clearly Josh. You know, he's going to kidnap her. You know, the viewer can actually use their brain. But later on, they show that clip again and they like zoom in and they're like, did you see? Josh was over there. If you missed that, it's okay. We're going to show you because, you know, you're probably a little bit stupid. Come on. The viewers are not stupid. We understand what's going on. And yeah, you know, you learn nothing about Josh. You don't even know what he looks like, which is fine. But yeah, this movie, I don't know. I feel like this movie could have worked if it was just better, if the characters worked a little bit better, if it was shot a little bit better, if just the absolute bones, the foundation of the story is great, but everything from there on just does not work. This movie as a premise is disgusting. It is scary, but everything else about this movie sucks. It is such a boring watch. I do not recommend you watch this. I gave this 0.5 star on Letterboxd, which I've never given a movie that low. I really, really, really wanted to like this, but it just felt like a school project. It felt so dull. It felt so boring. And it's upsetting because there's like movies like this you really sometimes want to like. I really wanted to like this. When this started, I was like, okay, this is like a very, very, very amateur movie. It's gonna be like a found footage, but I just couldn't. After the first 10 minutes, I was like, okay, maybe their chemistry is a little bit off. Maybe their acting is kind of bad. Maybe it'll pick up, maybe like the substance, or like the Josh, the character of Josh, or the other characters will bring this up and live up to the hype of this movie. But it doesn't. This movie is just so slow and it's so boring. And I don't mind a slow movie, do not get me wrong. Some movies can be super, super slow. Like I said, Skinamarink, I loved it. It was atmospheric. It was slow. I'm fine with slow movies. That's fine with me. But this, it's just everything. If you were to think of a really bad movie, think of all the characteristics of that bad movie, and it's probably present in Megan is Missing, because this movie just sucked. The ending, just everything. I did not like this movie. I'm really sorry. I like even the message is like, don't use the internet. Just be careful who you talk to on the internet because there's really bad people out there. And it's like, yeah, would you have to be so direct about it? Could you not have made that point more interesting? Everything about this movie. The more I think about it, the more like annoyed I get about it. And also, it's like everybody around Megan just doesn't seem to care whenever she goes missing. Like they tie pink ribbons around the tree, but nobody really goes like properly searching for her. Like obviously the internet is present. Nobody really uses the internet to help find her. And when Amy goes missing, it's the same thing. It's like you obviously care about these characters. Amy's also not liked throughout this movie, which is obvious. Like, you know, people are like, oh, you're a loser, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, I don't know. This movie just makes no sense. It's dumb, and I feel like I could repeat myself 1,000,001 times, but I think that's everything I have in my notes. It was a forced movie that just sucked, and I think that's everything I have to say. Have you watched Megan is Missing? What did you think about Megan was Missing? Did you like it more than I liked it, which is probably fairly easy? And yeah, let me hear what you thought about Megan is Missing, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.